I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Things are better left unknown, and I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever
Let's go, Brandon.
Oh, what a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner is it in her? What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays. What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner is it in her? Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion. Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Rippin' Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests, are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Rippin' Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Coming to you from a secret cave, hidden deep within the wilderness, this is the Darkwolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right, I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. and we are broadcasting live from a secret cave hidden deep within the wilderness of Tennessee. That's right. We're ripping through the electromagnetic soup. We're tearing through the atmosphere, and we're tunneling away into your radio like a quantum particle. This is the DarkWolf's Den Radio Show for Wednesday, February the 16th, 2022. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Folks, tonight we are carrying on our State of Mystery series as we travel from New York. We're done with the new states now, and we head on down to North Carolina, a state that has a lot of paranormal packed within its borders. All that and more coming up here in just a moment, but first, let's go ahead and check our YouTube chat rooms over here on both the DarkWolf's Den Show and the Rippin' Rabbit Hole YouTube channels. How we doing over here tonight, folks? Some technical issues on the device here. We'll try to get it fixed in the background in the meantime, folks. It is great to see all of you here. JoJo's checking in at the top of the list in the Rippin' Rabbit Hole, as well as the DarkWolf's Den Show. Both National Memorial Gardens checking in, sending good thoughts from the UK. Glad to see you, National Memorial Gardens. Errol Taylor also in the house with Sandy B and Raider Champion. Great to see all you guys. Prairie Fire checking in also. Lucky Bulger checking in. Glad to see you, Lucky, as well as JoJo's, like I said, checking in over in the DarkWolf's Den Show chat room, and the Rippin' Rabbit himself, Mr. AJ, hopping in to make an appearance, as well as AJ, which I believe I might know who that is also. So good to see all of you guys here tonight. And whether you are listening over in the YouTube chat rooms or around the world on Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network, the rippinrabbithole.com, or on demand on BitChute, Rumble, or Odyssey, we're glad to have every last one of you for the ride. And of course, before we can dive into our paranormal state of mystery that is North Carolina this week, we have two more fun little segments to do, the first of which we call Today in History. On this day in 600 AD, the Pope Gregory the Great decrees that saying God bless you is the correct response to a sneeze. Of course, some 1400 years later, and we're still following this decree set by Pope Gregory on this day in 600 AD, and that is today's segment of Today in History.
Say what?
Our quote of the day today, folks, comes from Groucho Marx. He says, and I quote, "I never forget a face, but in your case, I'll be glad to make an exception." End quote. That is, once again, Groucho Marx, and that is today's segment of
Say what?
All right, folks, now that we've got those two fun little segments out of the way, let us dive down into the deep rabbit hole that is the paranormal state of mystery of North Carolina. And of course, as you guys know, we always start out with our friend Ben Miller and the cryptids of the state. And this state has its fair share of cryptid creatures. What do we got tonight, Ben?
I think it is best to start our journey off with some beings that are said to make the water their home. Our first few stories involve beings that we rarely get a chance to talk about in any shape or form, and that would be mermaids.
I'm sorry, Ben, did you just say mermaids? I was unaware that North Carolina had any mermaid cases.
On Cape Fear River, there was a point that intersected the Deep River and Haw River. This point formed a sandbar that was locally known as Mermaid Point since the early 1700s. It was along this spot that for years people claimed to see mermaids swimming in the water or near the sandbar. Many a traveler would claim that while walking by the river at night, they would hear the voices of females laughing and singing emanating from the water. As they drew near, the silhouettes of women could be seen sitting on the sandbar. The thing is that while they had the upper body and heads of women, their lower portions resembled that of a fish. These beings would frequently sit on that spot brushing their hair, but if anyone tried to talk to them or make a noise, they would quickly vanish into the water.
This is a really intriguing case file. What intrigues me about this particular part is it says whenever they're realize that they're being noticed, so if they hear a human, something like that, they will escape off the rock into the water. What would be a natural response for a creature of that type, right? Wouldn't you say so, Maggie's Ace? Good to see you here, as well as Earth Daughter. It's so good to see all you guys. I think we got the board working now. We had a bit of a problem with our audio mixer board, it seems, but it looks like we've got that fixed. It's really great to see all of you guys. This creature here, I had never heard of a mermaid in North Carolina, of all places for a mermaid, right?
Now, during the Revolutionary War, many battles took place near that very spot, and a few years later, the water rose up and submerged the sandbar. Since that time, there haven't been any more sightings of these creatures, at least that are publicized. With these encounters, it is frequently mentioned that many of the witnesses came across the mermaids after visiting the nearby Ambrose Ramsay's Tavern. So, it is possible drinking could have played a part here, but there were reports from people who didn't visit the bar.
Well, that kind of narrows out the idea that a bunch of people are just getting drunk and seeing mermaids, which still in itself sounds like kind of a goofy concept, right? Not everybody's gonna see mermaids. Heck, I remember the joke was seeing pink elephants back in the day. Apparently pink elephants are really a thing now, but you guys get the point. It's hard to say that all these sightings just happen to be drunk people. That just seems like too much of a way to discount and discredit any real sightings. What do you guys think?
Keeping this in mind, a story that was provided to me from a longtime viewer named James Kasusnik tends to lend credence to these mermaid claims. An encounter near the rivers mentioned was said to have happened in the early 1990s and 2000s. The discrepancy here is due to the witness wanting to remain anonymous. A woman decided to sit on a large rock by the river, intent on reading a book while her husband went fishing upstream.
Maybe that's what all the mermaids are. Women waiting on their husband to get back from fishing, right?
After a while, she heard voices and footsteps, and when she looked up, she saw two boys were playing on the opposite side of the bank. To her horror, she noticed a form walking in the water towards them. It was described as being human-like with pale skin, long black hair, sharp serrated teeth in its mouth, and it appeared to be grinning.
Usually when we think of a mermaid, we think of a happy type, go-lucky creature, a creature that doesn't do harm. However, in this particular case, it sounds like this merfolk was very intent on doing harm.
The creature didn't seem to notice the woman, but his attention was fully on the boys. As the creature neared, the boys noticed it and grabbed pointy sticks to defend themselves. Before anything could happen, the boys' father called for them and they ran away from the bank. The woman claimed that the creature appeared visibly upset with a creepy look on its face. After a while, it slowly moved on further up the river. According to the story, the woman claims that she was certain it was a fairy of some sort, but I have to wonder if it wasn't a mermaid or merman.
I'm with Ben on this one. I think it was more likely than not a merfolk, a merman, or a mermaid, merwoman, whatever the case may be. If it is a fairy, it would be the biggest fairy I have ever had reported. Fairies don't tend to take on water creature forms, though, at least in my opinion. I haven't seen a lot of case files where that has been the case. However, it does match a number of merfolk case files that I have heard. So I'm with Ben Miller once again. I believe this was more likely than not a mermaid type creature. What else you got for us in the great state of North Carolina, Ben?
If this wasn't all strange enough, then we have to look at a siren that has been claimed to live in the French Broad River.
One thing is for sure, North Carolina definitely has its fair share of unique cryptids indeed.
Stories about this being have been around since 1845.
It looks like Earth Daughter called this one on the money as she said, water monsters or mermaids and sirens. So yes, Earth Daughter, you nailed that one. Ral, good to see you, my friend. Yes, North Carolina tonight, that is correct.
Much like a siren would, this creature is said to enact a plan where it affects a person's mind and will continually lure them in for days on end. This is done by both showing up in a person's dreams and while they are awake.
That's a new piece of case file to me. I don't really recall in the ancient Greek and maybe even Roman depictions of the siren that they would affect the dreams of the person. We know that their song affects the conscious state of the person as to draw them into them, but it is the first time I have heard of a dream state also being enacted by this type of creature, right? What about you guys?
Finally, the lure will be too much and a person will eventually walk to the river's edge. In some versions of this tale, it will either emerge from the water or will simply be standing there waiting. It is said to take the form of a nude woman with dark skin and dark hair. As the victim reaches out to her, she will grab their arms, and it is then that her skin becomes cold, covered in scales, and her face takes on a ghastly appearance that is said to resemble a skull.
So, in essence, the cryptid we are speaking of, this siren of sorts, has a shape-shifting capability, or at least the ability to shield her original look for a short period.
At this point, it is too late, and she drags her victim under the water.
Ralph says he married a siren. I got a lemon in my marriage, too, for what it was worth. Ralph, man, Danny Ma, good to see you. X-Gen says, evening, fellow travelers. Evening, X-Gen. Glad to have you along for the ride.
Now, obviously, this story may be a blend of legend, but with so many other mermaid-like sightings, you have to wonder if there isn't some truth to it.
And that's a really good point, Ben. Staying open-minded and adding it as just one more case file onto the pile really does make you wonder how many grains of sand do you need before you can build a beach? How many evidences of merfolk and water creatures do you need before you start to say, you know what, there may be something to this after all?
To round this water section out, we need to investigate Lake Norman, which is said to have its own Nessie-like cryptid known as Normie.
Okay, can we take just a moment and reflect on the fact that this thing is called Normie? I mean, I don't know about you guys. The normies are kind of weird to me too, but I don't know if I would classify them as cryptids, right? They're just uneducated people. They're normies, right? All right, folks, following the lines of Champy and Nessie, we have out of Lake Norman, Normie. What do you got for us, Ben? Tell us about this particular creature.
Lake Norman is a man-made lake that was created between 1959 and 1964 when the Catawba River was dammed. In its creation, a town had to be evacuated, and many of these buildings still remain under the water's surface. Oddly enough, even though this is not a natural lake, many large fish have been caught in the water.
One thing we do have to look at in these case files of these larger cryptid creatures especially is the sustainability of such a creature in the water, right? Is there enough food? Is there enough area, enough ability for a creature like this to survive? And it would appear that that is very much the case in Lake Norman. It sounds like there is a thriving ecosystem which would provide plenty of food for a larger creature.
For years, visitors and residents have reported seeing a giant creature in the lake, but descriptions do vary. Some claim it looks very much like a plesiosaur, while others say it resembles a scaly crocodile-like being.
So, your classic sea creature type monster.
Scuba divers visiting the underwater buildings have surfaced with stories of seeing a giant fish that was large enough to swallow a person whole.
I really find that particular descriptor very, very intriguing because I've heard it before. You see, I live in a town that has a river that runs right through the middle of the town. Over this river is a set of train trestles. Well, a barge going through the river one night hit the train trestle and it sank. So they sent divers down to try to salvage whatever they could off of this barge. The divers come back up a couple hours later and refused to return to the bottom of the river. They said there are fish down there big enough to swallow us whole. So this, again, is not the first time I have actually heard a claim like this from divers in a river. It is becoming more and more common over the years, but there really makes me lend a lot more credence to this particular story, right?
It was said to have a dog-like head, red eyes, and it was attracted to the divers' flippers. As such, many refuse to dive in certain areas that they feel the creature calls its home.
Wow, that seems more to me like a playful creature, right? That's obsessed with the flippers of the divers, almost like it's wanting to play with the divers with this weird flipper that is moving through the water, right? Almost like it sees the diver or the diver's equipment as a toy of some type.
One of this creature's favorite habits is bumping against boats and other watercraft. On September 6, 2014, a man named Nate and his girlfriend were on a jet ski when they saw a 14-foot creature emerge from the water in front of them. In terror, they sped away, but in the report, he claims his girlfriend no longer has an interest in swimming in that water. Rightfully so.
They aren't the only ones on the surface, though, who have seen old Normie.
On February 5, 2016, a man named John Eds claimed that while fishing on the lake in his boat, it was struck with such a force that it caused him to fall into the water. When he managed to get back into his craft, he saw a 15-foot-long creature similar to Nessie swimming away from him.
I would also like to point out, though, this particular creature is said to have the head of a dog. We still have the same general body build for this creature, so as I spoke of a couple weeks ago, the only difference being the head really makes you wonder if it isn't a different variety of the same species of creature.
On July 10th, 2017, a man simply known as BT said he saw a dinosaur-like creature surface for a few minutes and then resubmerge. These are a few sightings, but there is a page dedicated to this cryptid and its sightings. I'll include a link to it in the description.
Do you think it is possible, guys, for a dinosaur to have existed all this time, to have remained hidden enough from man to be able to reprocreate and carry on at least a small lineage, even if just a community of more than maybe 2 or 3, right? Do you guys think it is possible under our oceans that could be the case? Because remember, there is maybe 2-3%, at most 23% of our oceans that have actually been explored, right? So there's no telling what is actually under the waterways of this world.
Some people are obviously reporting made-up sightings, but there are quite a few of them that seem really legit.
As unfortunate as it is somewhat expected that you are going to have your fair share of pranksters and just people with very wild and vivid imaginations, right?
Moving on to a couple of unique cryptids that really don't fit into any type of normal category. Starting off, we have recent reports of Pterosaur sightings. Now, with any sightings of this nature, I like to point out that while descriptions may not match with current scientific ideas of how a pterosaur looks, these reports only claim that they looked like the old version.
For those that may not remember what the pterosaur was, think pterodactyl, right? A very large bird type creature, like the thunderbirds of the Southwest.
In that, it may be described as a pterosaur, but it might be something totally different. On March 24th, 2013, near sunset, a man was driving on a highway towards Raleigh when he saw a massive creature flying over his car about 20 feet away. It was described as having a 6-foot wingspan, its leathery wings were bony, and it had a claw in the middle. It had a long pointed beak with a cone shape on the back of its head, and it had a long tail that extended in a spade shape.
Now, this again sounds like your classic pterodactyl, from the wingspan to the crazy shape of the skull with the elongation on the skull, as well as the spade shape of the tail. This sounds like your classic pterodactyl dinosaur.
Another sighting was reported in Jacksonville, and it looked the same as described above, other than it had pale green colored skin, and the tail was said to be a diamond shape.
So it shows very little variation between the two creatures, the only difference really being the shape of the tail, right?
On January 4th, 2021, a veterinary technician named Cynthia Lee was driving to work in Raleigh.
Well, there you go, in Raleigh. We have Raleigh here in our chat with us tonight. Good to see you, Raleigh. Anyway, this is an interesting case because it is in 2021. This is a very, very new and recent case.
When she saw a similar creature, and it was featherless, had the cone on the back of its head, and its tail ended in a diamond-shaped bulb.
What I like about this witness is, number one, they are a veterinary technician. I would like to think that they would be quite familiar with most, if not all, of the creatures, especially in their local area. Yet you have a veterinary tech who has seen a creature that they definitely cannot explain, a creature that we're told by modern scientism has been extinct for a very, very long time. As it turns out, this particular creature may not be nowhere near extinct. It may just be incredibly endangered. But let's see what else the veterinary tech was able to report.
Oddly enough, when she told her family of the event, her mother and uncle both claimed to have seen the same type of creature many years prior.
You know, that is a good validation, though, when you tell your family what you experienced, only for them to tell you they also have experienced the same thing. So it sounds like North Carolina has at least one pterosaur.
Probably one of the most famous cryptids, and one that is frequently ruled a hoax, even though there isn't evidence to prove this, would be the beast of Bladensboro. This creature really doesn't have one description, but it is said to have black fur, huge paws, is about 5 to 6 feet long, and resembles a bear mixed with a dog or cat.
So, would this be a dwarf Bigfoot? I know it doesn't sound small, still standing at 6 foot, but you figure most Bigfoots stand 10 to 12 feet. Perhaps this is a juvenile or a dwarf version of that creature. What do you guys think?
Regardless of what it looks like, it is known to be very powerful. The first attack occurred on December 29th, 1953, in the town of Clarkton, and it viciously killed a dog. Then, on December 31st, it killed 2 more large dogs. It was said to have killed the first dog around 10:30 p.m. and left for some unknown reason, which gave the farmer time to wrap the body up in a blanket for burial in the morning. The beast then returned and took the dog's carcass with it. At 1:30, the creature came back and killed the second dog and took the body to the woods. When the carcasses were found, the head of one of the dogs was crushed, and the jaw had been removed of the other. From January 1st to the 3rd, 3 more dogs were killed by either being crushed or torn apart. Oddly enough, the third one was actually brought in for autopsy, and no blood was found in the body, and its jaw had been smashed into the skull. The missing blood was a feature that many of the prior victims shared as well.
Almost like the Chupacabra's creature that tends to also drink the blood. No, I don't think this was a chupacabra type creature. I really stand by the idea that this is some type of dwarfed version of a Bigfoot, and perhaps there's a reason they drain all the blood. When you make a deer kill, you drain all the blood off that too. Is that not correct? Perhaps it is their way of prepping the animal for what they would consider a meal, right? But that is all speculation, and we have run out of time for speculation, as that music means that we have to go ahead and take a network break right here. So I'm Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. This is the Darkwolf's Den Radio Show State of Mystery for Wednesday, February 16th, 2022, exclusively on Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network, the Rippin' Rabbit Hole. We'll be right back with the second half after these messages. Stick around. Don't touch that dial. That's right.
We gotta stoke the fires and run off the men in black. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Oh yeah, that howl means your weekend has begun. Hi everyone, it's AJ, the Rippin' Rabbit. Are you enjoying tonight's State of Mystery for North Carolina so far? I know I am. If you're enjoying tonight's Wednesday night broadcast, please make sure to put your thumb up in the air, and if you're listening on YouTube, you can feel free to use a finger. If you haven't done so already, you can hop on over to our website, rippinrabbithole.com. That's RIPONRABBITHOLE.com. There you'll find some exclusive features in our community-generated press. You're not going to find anything else, like our Down the Rabbit Hole social media network, a privatized social media network that you can subscribe by signing up to for your free and always will be VIP backstage pass. It's going to give you unfiltered access down the rabbit hole, allow you to create your own social media profile where you're not going to get shadow banned. You're not going to get deplatformed. We're not going to mislabel or suspend you for things that you say at our community-generated press, because we support freedom, and most important, we support the freedom of speech. So pay us a visit and sign up today. rippinrabbithole.com. Here's a look at your extended weekend ahead. Jerry Hicks and the Darkwolf's Den Show will return again tomorrow night, Thursday, February 17th. Can you believe it? My, oh my, how time does fly. Join Jerry Hicks and the Darkwolf's Den Radio Show as the Freedom Flame series continues. Tomorrow night's topic, ethics, starts at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Be here or be square. Then I'll return again Friday night with the Rip and Rabbit Hole live show, Friday, February 18th. Come along with me as we dive down the rabbit hole and explore the Joshua Glover tale. It's an 1854 story that fits right along with our Freedom Flame broadcast. It's coming up March 20th. Oh my goodness, I can't wait. The celebration is going to be our 5th annual celebration. My, oh my, how time does fly. Then Saturday night, February 19th, 7 p.m. Pacific, Angel Numbers. It's a show I wanted to do before the community guidelines strike occurred 2 weeks ago. So I'm bringing it back. We're going to do Angel Numbers on Saturday, February 19th, 2022. And then Sunday night, we're going to end out the weekend right together with a very special guest. Bella will be here. And we're going to have an evening discussing the story and deep rabbit hole regarding Janie Lane, the lead singer of Warrant, in our Heaven episode, Sunday, February 20th. We'll return back to Jerry Hicks and the Darkwolf's Den Radio Show. You're listening to the Rip and Common Sense Radio Network, the Rip and Rabbit Hole.
If you were meant to be controlled, you would have come with a remote, but you didn't. And that's why you listen to the Darkwolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Hicks.
That's right. I am Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And welcome back to the second half of the Darkwolf's Den Radio Show for Wednesday, February the 16th, 2022. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we're glad you chose us to be right there with you. Really quick, folks, if you haven't already, make sure you check out the newest show here on the program called Censored Freedom. Your host, Jerry Hicks, takes you through all the freedom-loving news you can handle in 30 minutes or less. That premieres every morning, 5 a.m. Eastern, 4 a.m. Central, 2 a.m. on the California coast over there. So we would really, really enjoy having you guys along for the ride. And of course, after the show, we put the links up to the recorded version on BitChute and Rumble, as well as dropping it down the rabbit hole, of course. But the best way is also, there's always, to catch it live. Once again, 5 a.m. Eastern, 4 a.m. Central, 2 a.m. Pacific. Make sure you come check it out. We would really appreciate it, folks. And now let's dive back down into the state of mystery that is North Carolina, as we move from the cryptid creatures into the ghost files that can be found within this state.
Bentonville Battlefield State Historic Site. Bentonville Battlefield State Historic Site, located off Harper House Road in southern Johnston County, midway between Newton Grove and Bentonville, and officially part of the town of Four Oaks in North Carolina, is a historic battlefield that's recognized for playing host to the largest Civil War battle fought within the state.
Because of the recipe for a haunting, of course, high trauma, high emotion, high chance of haunting, I would expect any and every battlefield across the world to be haunted, the Civil War battlefield in North Carolina being none the different.
The infamous Battle of Bentonville was fought from March 19th to the 21st of 1865, during which the Harper House was actually occupied by Union troops and served temporarily as a field hospital. This battle was the last full-scale action of the Civil War and ended in a resounding Confederate defeat. In 1957, portions of this historically significant expanse were opened up to the public under the Civil War Trust, who continued to acquire additional sections of the battlefield over the following years. The site remains open to this day, with the Harper House acting as a visitor center and museum.
You know, I gotta say, I really like hearing how many of these haunted places are still open to the public to this day, that researchers may go and still do field research.
Not surprisingly, Bentonville Battlefield is said to be haunted as a result of the many soldiers who died and were buried there. Combined with one Confederate mass grave, the Harper family cemetery, and remains more than likely lingering in the old military earthworks, which can still be viewed to this day. Throughout the area, many report the disembodied sounds of rifle and cannon fire, shouting, and the clash of battle, often accompanied by the smells of gunpowder, burning and rotting flesh, tobacco, and plain old fire smoke when there is no source present.
These kind of case files kind of mess with me, because I would have originally said this was stone tape of an event just replaying over and over, right? That makes sense. However, we also know that stone tape does not have an interaction in the environment, so this goes from stone tape to active haunting. Almost once again, we have this scene playing out like it's locked into its own reality bubble. Perhaps that is the case, that is kind of trapped within this reality, almost like a replay of events all the way down to the smell. But again, stone tape does not work. It's almost like we're looking at another dimension entirely here.
A number of informal investigations have yielded high EMF levels, chilling EBPs, abnormal battery death rates, and extreme cold spots.
And as we discussed last week, these battery drainage issues are of course to be expected, as if the soul is what it knows to manipulate is electricity, as it does within our body to allow our body to work, then the soul would, still understanding this concept once outside the body, still attempt to manipulate electricity in order to interact with the physical world. Again, we discussed this last week, and this is to be expected in my opinion, any case file where there is an environmental interactive haunting of some type.
And a range of encounters detail orbs visible to the naked eye, strange mists that float with seeming cognition, and full-bodied apparitions that appear so real many mistake them for actors until watching them vanish into thin air. Lastly, at the Harper House, the full-bodied apparitions of both Union and Confederate troops have been sighted wandering about, often manifesting blood spots across the floors and walls. And the spirits of both John Harper and an unknown little girl thought to have died of tuberculosis have been known to materialize suddenly, usually startling all nearby.
That case file is incredibly strange, as it brings in elements of many different types of hauntings and kind of smashes them all together. The ones that would appear and speak with a guest before disappearing, those carry on more of the traits of the caretaker ghosts. And then you have these interactive soldiers who like to spook people. So very, very incredible haunting on this battlefield, and as we know, a number of battlefields around the world. But what do we have next on our haunted list for North Carolina?
The Bellamy Mansion Museum. The Bellamy Mansion Museum, located off Market Street in Wilmington, North Carolina, is a historic home turned museum that today is considered one of the state's finest examples of historic architecture, as well as one of the more prominent locations within the city's famous historic district. The grounds remain open to the public as a museum of both history and design arts. The most famous stories tell the mansion is haunted by the spirits of the Bellamy family, all of which are said to have passed away and whose funerals were also said to be held on site. And many who visit it report shadowy figures that dart about, as well as full-bodied apparitions in old-fashioned clothing. The ghost of a man in all black, thought to be a Union officer, has been sighted throughout the halls.
So far, it sounds like the only thing we have going on here is a bit of stone tape repetition of these different ghosts, right? Well, it gets more strange from here.
And doors have been known to unlock or even lock themselves, sometimes trapping those present inside specific portions of the house.
Now, that sounds just a little more scary to me, but again, you have this interactive haunting, which means it is not stone tapes.
Reported across mansion grounds are disembodied voices, footsteps heard from empty areas, knocking and thumping from within the walls, and the sounds of someone playing piano always heard from just out of sight.
Now, I've said this before, and I only say it half jokingly, right? I would not mind the musical ghosts, right? These ones that are playing these musical instruments, especially if it's like soft and just out of the way of volume or ability to be heard. I would definitely not mind that, especially if I'm trying to go to sleep, right? A little soft piano music definitely would not be a bad thing.
The top floor, also called the children's floor, is said to give many a severely uneasy feeling that's caused a good portion of visitors to have to actually leave the area. And a range of reports detail the sounds of kids running, talking, laughing, and playing when none are present on the property. One final legend tells that Ellen was known for reading the newspaper every night before bed and getting her fingers all covered in black ink, which she would often leave behind when turning off lights. Even after several repaintings, a black smudge continues to appear in the same place to this day.
As she still follows her same routine in the other world of reading the newspaper and then turning out the light. And one tradition that we have here on the DarkWolf's Den Show in the State of Mystery series specifically is we try our best to cover any haunted colleges that the state may offer. And we were on a pretty good roll there for a while. The last couple we really haven't had any haunted colleges, but we have a return once again, folks, to the haunted college. And this time we have a haunted college in the state of North Carolina.
Queen's University of Charlotte. Queen's University of Charlotte, located off Selwyn Avenue in the historic Myers Park neighborhood of Charlotte, North Carolina, is a privately owned liberal arts university that focuses largely on an active and collaborative learning environment. Historically, the school was first established in 1857 as the Charlotte Female Institute, but would later, in 1891, change its name to the Seminary for Girls. In 1896, this seminary would be merged with a newer institution, the Presbyterian Female College, chartered by the Concord and Mecklenburg Presbyteries. The school would be moved to its Myers Park location in 1912, after which it would take the name Queen's College. And in 1948, its first male students were admitted for a co-ed night course. In 1980, the college would launch its first master's program while earning its status as a university, though its name wouldn't change until later. And in 1987, the school would officialize itself as a co-ed learning facility. In 2002, the old institution would take on its most recent moniker, being the Queen's University of Charlotte, which in the present enrolls around 2,500 students. Across the university's campus, campus, a number of legends of the otherworldly have emerged. One story tells of a female student who fell in love with one of her peers. It's said that when her parents learned of her relationship, they disowned her, and that in desperation, this student slit her own wrists in her...
And again, this story follows our recipe for a haunting. You have high trauma plus high emotion equals high chance of a haunting.
Dorm. Legend furthers to tell that before she died, the girl reached up and wrote her love's name, Julie, in blood across the wall. Ever since, in the dorms, many report finding Julie written in blood on various surfaces or even on beds, as well as the constant disembodied sounds of a girl crying.
Bloody words showing up on any surface, if you ask me, is incredibly creepy.
The ghost of a male student who's said to have killed himself has been sighted in the courtyard, sometimes walking about and at other times hanging from a noose. Poltergeist activity has been experienced within Wallace Hall, and phantom piano music has been heard drifting from the basement of the Susan Little Recital Hall when it's completely empty. Another story from Belk Residence Hall tells of a freshman girl who lived on the main floor, who was staying up late one night to study when she heard the sounds of a child playing around in the basement. Thinking she was becoming delirious from lack of sleep, she decided to go to bed, but shortly after her head hit the pillow, her desk began to shake violently, and her lamp was thrown across the room by forces unseen. It's said that when this student attempted to get up and run, the spirit of a little girl appeared in her closet, scaring her right back into her bed. Upon hearing frantic screaming, an RA burst into the room, but found no little girl, just the terrified student. This ghostly little girl has reappeared to several other students since, all under similarly terrifying conditions.
But the spirit of the little girl isn't the only spirit that haunts this property.
The spirit of Margaret Anna Burwell, wife of the school's first president, has been sighted in Queen's Hall, clad in a formal black dress, and the ghosts of several Civil War soldiers have been spied roaming about. Lastly, legend tells Morrison Hall is haunted by a ghostly girl named Clara. As the story goes, long ago, Clara's boyfriend or fiancé was overseas when she fell in love with another man. It's said Clara wrote a heartfelt letter to break things off so that she could pursue this new relationship, but that the letter was never received, and that when her man returned to surprise her, he found her in the arms of her new suitor. While some claim it was murder and others suicide, the end result was that Clara was discovered hanging by her bedsheets over the banister of the stairwell. Within Clara's old room, many report electronic malfunctions, drawers opening and closing on their own, pictures flying from the walls inexplicably, and accounts of firm skeptics refusing to enter the building alone.
It sounds like the University of North Carolina has its fair share of hauntings, right? These sound incredibly creepy, especially the one with the little girl. Like, that one would seriously creep me out. Not to count the one with the girl writing the name in blood everywhere. That's, man, these got really creepy tonight, folks. But unfortunately, that is all the time we have for tonight's episode. What do you guys think? With all the cryptid creatures and the interesting ghosts that reside in North Carolina, do you think that it is a state of mystery, or do you think perhaps we're barking up the wrong tree? In the end, ladies and gentlemen, all you can do is look at the evidence, apply a little common sense, and
you be the judge.
That's right, Bubby. We got to close it out. That's right, that's it for this episode of the Darkwolf's Den Radio Show for Wednesday, February the 16th, 2022. So whether you're on the edge of a reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, I'm glad you chose us to be right there with you. Ladies and gentlemen, the den may be closing, but don't you worry, the weekend fun has only just begun. That's right, make sure you come back tomorrow, Thursday, February 17th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, as the DarkWolf's Den Show returns with another episode of the Freedom Flame series. This time we're going to be discussing ethics. That's right. Also, tonight, 5 a.m. Eastern, 4 a.m. Central, 2 a.m. Pacific, we have yet another episode of the Censored Freedom, as we do every single morning. That is your daily news update for everything going on in the world. All the freedom-loving news you can handle in 30 minutes or less with your host, Jerry Hicks. That is, of course, every single night of the week. Then on Friday, February the 18th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, our buddy AJ the Rippin' Rabbit comes back to the airwaves with another episode of the Rippin' Rabbit Hole live show. That's right. This time he's going to be discussing the story of Joshua Glover, a story that is incredibly important in the history of not only Ripon, Wisconsin, but also the rest of the country. That's right. Make sure you tune in for that on Friday. Definitely a tale you do not want to miss. A rabbit hole well worth diving down. Then on Saturday, February the 19th, 2021, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, our buddy AJ the Rippin' Rabbit comes back once again with another episode of the Rippin' Rabbit Hole live show, an episode that was supposed to occur last week, but there was a bit of an issue. So this week AJ will be discussing angel numbers. I get a lot of angel numbers, folks. I don't know about you, but I see 1111, 444, and 1234 everywhere around me. Maybe that's just me. Maybe the angels are trying to speak to me through the angel numbers. And AJ will be discussing the angel numbers once again on Saturday, February 19th, 2022, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then on Sunday, February 20th, 2022, AJ comes back to round the weekend out right with you with a discussion on heaven. Last week he touched on spirit. This time he's going to be discussing the concept of heaven. Definitely a rabbit hole worth going down. And that's going to close the weekend out right with you here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network, the RippinRabbitHole.com. Speaking of the RippinRabbitHole.com, you do want to make sure you hop on over there so you can always stay up to date with our latest shows. That is RippinRabbitHole.com. Lots of letters for lots of fun. That's right. While you're there, make sure you sign up for the VIP Backstage Pass. That's going to get you access to the rest of the site and things like our groups section or our 24/7 Backstage Lounge or any number of fun things. Also, there's a radio player at the bottom of every page. At the very bottom of every page, however, you're going to find this little bitty flame, the Freedom Flame, the symbol of Rippin' Common Sense Radio Network, as the Freedom Flames burns brightly outside the Little White Schoolhouse in Ripon, Wisconsin. That's right. And we are going to be having our Freedom Flame celebration March 19th and 20th with a 24-hour live stream event, folks. We will continue to keep you updated on that event as time draws closer. We are going to be celebrating the 5th year of the Freedom Flame celebration here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio, the 67th year of its existence, and the 167th year of the GOP. And I cannot wait for that episode. Very excited for stuff we got coming up here. But with that said, folks, we've got to get out of here for this episode. My name is Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf. And on behalf of AJ the Rippin' Rabbit, Chick Mandela Effect, Michael Musco, Walt House, everyone involved in Ripin' Common Sense Radio Network, remember, until next time we meet again, stay awake, but dare to dream. Good night, everybody. How? Yeah. That's right. Let's go, Brandon.
I'm lost and into the dark. Some things are better left unknown. And I'll never find you here, 'cause no one's ever
Let's go, Brandon FJB. Let's go, Brandon FYT. Honk, honk, honk. We just want to be free.
Oh, what a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. Oh, what a sinner. Is it in her?
Said honk, honk, honk. We just want to be free. Let's go, Brandon FJB.
What's the truth in this riddle? Is love really just this simple? I can't seem to find my way in this world that never stays.
Shout out to Canada, Australia, and America, and every country that is standing up, rising.
What a widow, a peaceful spider. When the glass is clean, she's a sneaky hider. Hide the lies and the alibis. What a sinner. Is it in her?
Honk, honk, honk.
Is this real? Just illusion? I'm lost in the wonderland of confusion.
The enemy's lost in a wonderland of delusion.
Is this real or just illusion? Manifestation or a dark delusion? Is this real or just illusion? I'm lost in a wonderland of confusion.
Shout out to my freedom-loving friends across the world. You're always welcome here in the Rabbit Hole. Good night, everybody.